You'll understand a little more about why you feel the way you feel right now after you hear from our morning keynote speaker. Dr. Wallace J. Nichols is not a neuroscientist by training. He's someone who, though, has had a lifetime of being pulled to water and trying to understand that magnetic power of water. And once in a while, you come across a book that just sort of seems like it puts everything together in a way that clicks in your mind and enlightens you. And his book, Blue Mind, has done that for me. It's done that for a number of people in this room who have read the book. And I think you're going to get just sort of a 40,000-foot level overview of that in his morning talk. But it's amazing, and I think it's going to open up a lot of new avenues for both UW Extension Lakes, but also the entire partnership to think about ways to embrace members of our community and to draw them in to our water conversation. So it is my pleasure to introduce to you Wallace J. Nichols.
Good morning. How's everybody doing? So that beautiful video there that just opened things up, we've become so conditioned to you hear nature sounds and then you hear the music and then your brain expects to hear David Attenborough break into his British accent and tell you something about the natural world and then take you on a journey. And it's so nice to just not hear a voice and to listen to the music of water and the music of the guitar and watch the water. And it just reminded me of how special those moments are when you step away and just go and listen to the rain and watch it, or look at the creek and look at the lakes. Watch the sun come up, watch the sun go down, and luxuriate, even if it's 15 minutes or dare I say 15 seconds that you can find to do that in our busy days. That's those are important moments. So no offense to David Attenborough, he's a wonderful guy and he's done so much for documentary filmmaking, but it's sometimes nice to have wordless documentaries like that. So I just want to share my contact information for those who want to get in touch to continue the conversation. If you have questions, comments, you want a copy of my deck, you need a citation, that's why I have that. If you're into social media, we track this part of the conversation about water with the Blue Mind hashtag. I want to say thanks to Eric and his whole team for inviting us, bringing this aspect of the conversation, the full conversation about water, to the table literally. And part of the way our collaboration came about was obviously through the Blue Mind book, but also the realization that there's a message here that needs to become a permanent part of the way we talk about water, the way we communicate about our work, the way we communicate about its importance. And this conference is truly leading the way on the national and international level, minding our waters being the theme. That's a bold statement. It's to bring in the neuroscience for a speaker is one thing. To refer to the human mind as your theme is taking it up a notch. So congratulations on that, taking it up a notch here in Stevens Point. So applause for Eric for pulling this together. It's kind of a risky thing to do in a way, to be out in front, and I appreciate how that feels. And thanks to Mayor Mike for the warm words of welcome. This is a water town. Surrounded by water with great traditions related to water. And what I'm hoping to do is just give you a reminder of some things you already know that may have faded away a bit. To give you some new language to talk about the things you're already doing. And the goal here is to bold, to underline and remind, and take the next steps in how we grow this blue movement, this water movement, how we get more people to pay attention to the true value of healthy, wild waterways. And if I can make a contribution to your toolbox, this morning will have been time well spent. So you came in, I think I probably should ask, if you did not get a blue marble on your way in, please raise your hand. And somebody will bring, oh, we did a pretty good job. If you need a blue marble, raise your hand, and we have some volunteers, I believe, who can put a blue marble in your hand quickly, I think. Is that happening? We do have marble distribution is our forte. So if you have a blue marble, please find it. If it's in your pocket, in your bag, in your coat, pull it out, put it in your hand, and get ready. Hold it out in front of you. Okay, here's the trick. Don't hold it above your head, because then people will think that you need a blue marble. Hold it out in front of you. This is getting complicated already, isn't it? God, I need another cup of coffee. Hold it out in front of you. And just consider that that is what we look like right now from 1,000,000 miles away. If you could zoom quickly back 1,000,000 miles and turn around and look, that's what we look like. That's about the right size. I did the math. You may have to adjust a little bit depending on the length of your arm. For those long arm or short arm folks, just do it. That's what we look like. That is a humbling perspective that very few people will ever achieve. They're called astronauts. And I don't know if there are any astronauts in the room or going to be astronauts, but most of us will not get that perspective physically. So congratulations, you get a blue marble to achieve that perspective. But seriously, that view reminds us that we live on a small, beautiful water planet. It's blue because of the water. Right? It's special as far as we can tell in the universe. Now, NASA scientists are hot on the trail of finding Earth-like planets. And their acronym that they use in pursuit of that quest is called FTW, follow the water. So they're literally scanning the universe for signals related to water as the first step towards finding Earth-like and perhaps other life of any kind on any other planet. Follow the water. That's internal NASA speak. So feel free to use that in your communications. But we're also reminded that everything we do here matters. Every little thing and every big thing. And that we do nothing alone. Nothing. You may feel sometimes like you're working alone. But even just getting to the seat that you're in required a whole team of thousands of people. The clothes that you wear, the coffee that is on the table in front of you, the chair you're sitting in, the lights, the screen, the technology, just on and on. It's always a team effort. Everything we do together. So to accomplish anything great, it really takes collaboration. So you thought it was just a blue marble that you were getting. It's a reminder of some pretty important, profound concepts about who we are and how we should proceed. So I'd like to ask people when I meet them, sometimes I'm sitting on an airplane, and sometimes in a room full of 600 people in Stevens Point. I like to ask, what's your water? So just think about that for a moment. What's the first thing that pops to mind when I ask, what's your water? Chances are in this group, the word lake will come up in your minds when you think of what's your water. But another piece of that is, what's the water you dream about? Right? When you're thinking about being near, in, on, and underwater, what's the water you dream about getting back to? And when did you fall in love with that water? Now picture yourself on that day, that summer, that moment. Who were you with? Drip, drop, the sound of water. Is that me? I'll put this here, maybe that'll help. Okay, maybe that's lav. Maybe I'll use the podium mic. Okay. And we'll turn the lav mic. Is that still working? Yep. Okay. So I was in that like nice poetic flow there and just got interrupted. Okay, let's get back to that. When did you fall in love with water? How old were you? What did that look like? Just go back there for a second. And who took you there? Who was the guide? Who was the mentor? Who was the teacher? Was it a parent? Was it a loved one? Was it a brother or sister? A cousin maybe? Think about that. Who is that? What's their name? Right? These simple questions take us all back to some of the, maybe the best moments in our lives. Maybe that story that you could string together around these simple questions is the reason we're here together in this room. Something about that led to this. It shifted you in some way. You said, man, I feel good. I like this. Water is cool. I think I want to work with water for the rest of my life. Right? It's not the path that we have all taken. You know? But some of us, that is the reason why we're here. For some people, the connection to water is really about hydration and hygiene. Right? Basics. And there are a lot of people who move long distances to get their water daily. And it's a chore, but it's also got an element of enjoyment to it, joy. Like when they get there to their water supply and they see it, it's got to feel good. When they're carrying that bucket back to their home and it's splashing around on their body and it's a hot day, that's got to feel good. When they deliver the water to their home in that vessel and everybody looks and sees them coming in the door with the day's water, they've got to feel proud. And then when they use that water to bathe, to cook, to drink, for hydration, for hygiene, there's a feeling of satisfaction. For some people, maybe the water you thought of was more recreational. A wild river, a wild lake, and standing there. And if you thought of fishing, it reminds me that, you know, the act of fishing sometimes involves very few fish. It involves some standing, some waiting, some chatting, some knot tying, some snag dealing, but it's you know, if you called it meditating while standing in the water, very few people would maybe sign up. There's a group, probably even some of us in this room, but you call it fishing and people go and they do it. Paddling, again, there's the activity, but then there's also the time and space in between the exercise, the chore, the work part, that's just floating, watching, thinking, relaxing. Now you add the whitewater in and it gets fun, right? There's excitement, there's these moments of thrill, of challenge, of focus, interspersing the flat water. We're surrounded here in Stevens Point, every direction you go, you can't go far and you will get wet. You will find yourself eventually on the shores of a great lake or a great river. Go north and you head into wilderness, water wilderness, where the green and the blue sort of create a mosaic, a maze, a labyrinth of wonder and awe. A lot of times we go to the water together and it's a social experience. We talk, we catch up, we reminisce. There's not really nothing better, is there, than hanging out with the people you love the most in the water you love the most. Getting back there and reconnecting, catching up. Sometimes you do those activities together, whether it's fishing or surfing or paddling, and it's the social aspect of that. It's the teaching. You're teaching the next generation to fall in love with the activity, with being near, in, on, and underwater. Sometimes wildlife shows up, whether it's the ocean and it's dolphins or turtles, or maybe you're underwater and you're face to face with an animal, right? Lake Superior has some beautiful whales. I know you're thinking that, right? But there are beautiful animals everywhere you go. You just have to open your eyes and look and maybe find a little patch of clear water. This is Brian Scarry face to face with this beautiful animal. I love that photo. It's stunning, really. It's just awe-inspiring to put yourself not in his shoes, in his fins, and imagine being there, being submerged. And it also reminds me how important it is to get in and then under our water. So if your water is a lake and you haven't been under the surface, beneath the surface lately, just do it. Do it this summer. Jump in, hold your breath, sink down, get down to the mucky bottom, and come back up. Just do it. Do yourself a favor and get as deep as you can in there. Sometimes our water's frozen, right? Frozen solid. We call it ice. Still water. Right? Sometimes it's snow. and it's still beautiful, still awe-inspiring. Sometimes our access to the water involves engineering, like a bridge. And a well-designed bridge gets you across the water safely from point A to point B, but it also affords you a vista, an enjoyable moment. Maybe it's on your commute, and you look both ways in the morning, you look both ways in the evening, you see the sunrise, you see the sunset, right? A well-engineered bridge allows for awe. Maybe your water is just very simple, cold sip from the bubbler. And I remember back in my school days, that's the way we drank water. We didn't have these fancy water bottles. We had bubblers. And you stood in line, and you waited your turn, and you got up there, and you grabbed onto that thing, and you pressed that button or pushed that lever, and then you just took your time, and you owned the water fountain. You owned the school, man. You had that water fountain in your hands, and that stream of water. It was cool, and you just took your time, and then got in line again if you needed to. Sometimes we enjoy the water with our non-human friends, right? Out in springs or in ponds, just sitting and soaking. And sometimes it's a more indoor activity where we will hang out with our non-human friends and enjoy breakfast. This is Jack Black, and his water is the domestic kind. So wherever you go across our nation, you will intersect with water. You will intersect with water people. You will never really be far from a lake, from a river, from a creek, from an ocean, from a bay, from a wetland. Right? We're never far from the water. When I think of that same question, what's my water, I think of my late dad. Died last year on Earth Day. Picked a good day to check out. And Earth Day will never pass without thinking of him. He's the guy that taught me about water. He's the guy who taught me to swim. He's the guy who said, let's go, let's go check that out, let's do this. He was my guide. And I found myself exploring our country, exploring the water, and feeling like I did that day in the Rocky Mountains by Deep Lake. That's Deep Lake in the background. I can remember every sensory piece of that moment. I remember how the grass felt. I remember how the air smelled. I remember how the wolves sounded at night. I remember how the trout tasted that we pulled. I remember what it felt like to jump in the lake every morning. My cousin Matt, who went to Northland, lives in Kailua, Hawaii, and runs a aquatic ocean therapy program for at-risk youth, was here this week. He was with me on that trip. And we were just reminiscing about it in our bunk beds last night. We couldn't fall asleep because we were just talking about our childhood and those great adventures by the water. But the water is what lights it up. Now, at that age, about 11, I was more in love with turtles. And this is the best photo I have of that connection. We used to catch snapping turtles in the Chesapeake Bay, paint numbers on their shells, put them back in the bay. Occasionally, we would recapture an animal that had a number. So I was a bit of a nature geek, a turtle geek, but also a math nerd. And so I loved algebra, I loved math. And so we would try to figure out how many turtles, snapping turtles, were in the Chesapeake Bay, based on very, very poor experimental design. I know you were thinking it. No, we did not publish that study. There's some serious flaws in our methodology, but it was fun. It was not an assignment. It was not homework. It was play. We were out grabbing turtles, thinking about them, and then I literally dreamed about that activity. I dreamed about catching turtles. I dreamed about where they might be going, and that has led to kind of, I would say, a mild obsession with sea turtles. I see sea turtles everywhere. You laugh. You know what I'm talking about. You probably, you see pike, you see lakes, you see other species. I see turtles. And I remember the day going home and explaining to my dad a very, very important thing that was going to change my life. Big news. And I was so scared to tell him. It was that Luke Skywalker, Darth Vader moment. I thought I was going to get lightsabered in half, and that was going to be the end. And I said, Dad, standing in his living room, I'm not going to be a doctor or a lawyer or or businessman or an engineer. I am going to be a turtle guy. And that landed about as it just did right there, just kind of flat. And he was a bit confused, a bit concerned, not sure what you do when you're a turtle guy. And as a dad now, I understand it well, that fear for your children's future. That was the look on his face. But we worked that out, and he and my mom and whole family were very supportive. But that love of turtles took me to northwestern Mexico, where the desert meets the ocean. Which turns out is a very turtley region, the Sonoran Desert, where it hits the ocean. Traditionally, there were a lot of turtles there. They've been hunted to near extinction, and that's where I wanted to go to make a contribution to science. There was a big hole in the research, there's a big need for recovery, and there was really nothing much going on, so there was an opportunity. One of the first things we did is we put a satellite transmitter on a turtle. Remember, I love catching turtles. I love marking them and letting them go. Wow, this was so exciting. I finally got to put a transmitter on a turtle and let it go. That turtle is named Adelita. We named it after the daughter of the fisherman who helped us do that. And this was 1996. And there's a lot to say about turtle biology, and this is not a talk about turtle biology, although I would love to just kind of riff on turtle biology for the next week and a half or so, right about now. I'd love talking about turtles, but there's a lot to say about the biology of this animal. And the simple observation, she had been in captivity for 10 years. We released her into the ocean, and as she's swimming away, she pauses. You can see that as this loops around, right about there, she's saying, where's the wall? There should be a wall here. Because if I swam like this during the last 10 years, I know she wasn't saying it exactly this way to herself, but paraphrasing. So she said, where's the wall? No wall. There's been a wall right about here for 10 years. The tank was about 10 meters diameter. Finding no wall, she continues to swim. Right? Guess what's on the other side of the wall? The rest of her life. Her fate. The future of her species. Her desire to go procreate. Go home. Right? Turns out, in her case, that was 7,000 miles away. It took her 368 days to cross the entire Pacific Ocean to go home to Japan, to look for a mate, to go lay some eggs. Her hormones kicked in. Her instinct said, this is what you are meant to do. This is what turtles do. This is what turtles have done for 100 million years. This is what we do. We go home. We go back to where we were born. So we tracked her. We put the data online. I remember my advisor saying, whoa, don't put the data online in real time. Somebody will steal it. And I thought, whoa, I don't think I want my turtle data stolen. And I thought, what would somebody do with stolen turtle data? Yeah, exactly. That's a funny question, but that's the obvious question when you're told that people are going to steal something. What do they do with that? There's a big black market for stolen turtle data. Though it turns out that people borrowing, using with permission, because you're sharing your data, can lead to amazing collaborations, breakthroughs, smart people that know how to do things we didn't know how to do. Teachers teaching math using Adelita's data. Art teachers teaching art, poetry coming back from the students. So we built a kind of a turtle network, if you will, by sharing online. That has led to some of my best friendships, some of my favorite moments, and I guess some of my proudest work in working together with this group of fellow turtle geeks around the world to bring sea turtle populations back from the brink of extinction. In some cases, we've been successful. In many cases, there's a lot of work to do. But this is a group of people who are utterly unstoppable. You can take away permits, you can take away funding, they will not stop because there's something else going on that's deep, much deeper than a job, right? Not to diminish money, it's important, and permits, very important, right? We know that. It's the world we live in. But there's something else that's driving us forward to solve big problems. And I became curious about that. And I started looking around to other departments on campus outside of wildlife biology. outside of evolutionary biology, outside of the resource management school that I got my PhD in, the University of Arizona. And I started to ask a different kind of question about the human-nature connection. And I came across this quote. Gus Speth basically says, you can collect lots of science for 30 years, but that science alone is not going to make the shift. We need something else. And we're not, generally, as scientists and managers, we're not well trained to do that something else. Right? So science communication has come a long way, but there's still more to be said. And it turns out there's a different group of scientists that we should be talking to. They're the scientists who study human behavior, the ones who study neuroscience, neuropsychology, cognitive biology, the ones who literally study the neurons that make up our nervous system, that make us who we are, part of who we are. Now, we used to understand human behavior from this black box perspective. Right? You could stimulate a person and then look at the response, but you couldn't look inside. Right? It's kind of like studying a car that doesn't run and not being able to open the hood. Just, you could kick it and then see what happens, see if that works. You could push it, see what happens. You could paint it, see what happens. You could rip the roof off, see what happens. Open the windows, but you couldn't look under the hood. So that's the way neuroscience, if you will, functioned for a very long time. Now, of course, you could look under the hood, but that would mean that the user of the brain was done using it, if you get my drift. You could look for anomalies, you could look for injuries, diseases, and compare them to the behavior while that brain was in use. Now the technology allows us to open the hood, to look inside while the brain's still being used. EEGs that measure electricity in the brain. Right, to understand which brain regions are active. fMRIs measure oxygen as a proxy for activity. Right? So these are glimpses, really just glimpses at this point in this young science into human behavior, into the neurophysiology, the neuroanatomy, the neurochemistry of us. We're understanding that the brain at rest and the brain in action, the attentive brain, are different. They're doing different things. Different brain regions are activated. That gets kind of interesting. And this isn't even a new brain scan. We can understand the neuroscience of love. The neuroscience of love. Wow, that's cool. The science of love, the science of happiness. You can unpack this set of emotions we refer to as love as a chemist, as a physiologist, as a biologist, as a scientist. Right? Now, I do always like to point out that some people don't really find serotonin, oxytocin, dopamine conversations romantic, like my wife. Absolute deal killer, really. I'm just going to say, I'll just put it that way. There's a time and a place to talk about the neurochemistry of romance. Maybe that's obvious to most of you. I made that mistake on Valentine's Day past. Oxytocin, very important chemical. Very important neurochemical. It is involved in love. It is involved in building trust. Not just in humans, but throughout all mammals. Our job is to build oxytocin. That's part of it. To bring it up in the room that you're speaking in. To bring it up in the interactions that you're having. Build trust. Right? Marketers understand this. You know why? Because they hire neuroscientists to help them sell Coca-Cola, to help them sell chocolate, Cadbury. I just met a neuromarketer who spent her career working for Cadbury chocolate. And she said, we studied the smell, the taste, obviously, the texture, the packaging, the softness. We studied the neuroscience of that in order to get you to buy more chocolate, right? The science of chocolate exceeds the neuroscience of water. That's wrong, right? We got to fix that. Cover of Scientific American magazine, recently. The science of meditation. 10 years ago, that would not have made the cover of a scientific journal or publication. Now scientists are looking, going, okay, we call it meditation. It's just basically the brain at rest. But what's going on in there? Why is that different? Why was that video that we watched this morning calming? What's going on? Let's understand that. We should know that. We water people, we should know that. We should be able to talk about it. We should be able to communicate it. Nobel Prizes being won by neuroscientists, applied neuroscientists, who are figuring out how we make mental maps, how you're able to find your car later today, find your room later today, right? How do we make those mental maps? There's a physical, a chemical, and an anatomical basis to making those mental maps. This is the golden age of neuroscience. We are in it. It's exciting. The science every week is, I wouldn't say revolutionary every week, but certainly every month. It feels big. It feels important. And it's affecting everything we do. And so I want to bring this conversation about our brains to the water professionals, to conferences like this. This is the first generation to have a decent guide to our own brain. Think about that. Think about the car analogy or the computer analogy. If you have a piece of complex technology and you don't have a user's manual, you're going to make a lot of mistakes as you try to figure things out. You might break things, right? If you have a manual, a well-written manual, you have a little bit of an edge there. So think about that. A user's guide to your own brain. Now, if you go to the neuroscience section of the library or the bookstore, you'll find an increasing number of books about neuroscience and fill in the blank, right? The neuroscience of creativity, the neuroscience of happiness, the neuroscience of music, fascinating book, Musicophilia by Oliver Sacks, among others. The neuroscience of magic, that refers to the idea that illusionists are neuroscientists, meaning they know your brain better than you do, so they can make you think they can do things that they actually can't, right? Houdini was a neuroscientist, another, may have been a secondary title for that second book, top row on the left. So now there's an emerging number of books about nature and neuropsychology. Richard Louv talks about The Last Child in the Woods, nature deficit disorder. What happens to our kids when they are cut off from nature, when they don't play outside? Flo Williams just published a book called The Nature Fix. And my book, Blue Mind, really focuses on water, while the other books are more about green space, as we scientists like to refer to plants. My book is about blue space, which is the way we refer to water. This conversation I call neuroconservation. It's a mashup of neuroscience with conservation biology, right? New word. It's kind of fun to make up words, isn't it? You just take two words and you smash them together and you make up a new word. So this is the way we describe, if you walk around this conference, this is the way we mostly describe, if you go to a turtle conference, an ocean conference, a river conference, this is the way we mostly describe the ecosystem benefits, ecosystem services of a healthy lake, river, ocean. Gives us jobs, gives us food, gives us energy, oxygen. The ocean gives us over half of our oxygen. Of course, biodiversity, hydration and hygiene, paramount, the basis of our society. We talk about trophic cascades, right? You familiar with that term? You bring back a top predator, it influences the prey, that influences their prey, that influences the plant community, which starts to change the waterway. Eric and I and Jackie walked out to that small lake pond that's out near the parking lot. And we just discussed the potential there. What would that look like? And we discussed the plants that could be brought back. We discussed the substrate. Remove some rocks, bring in some more soil, bring in some different plants, bring in some animals, bring in some turtles, right? Now it's fun, now it's fun. That's gonna be fun. Put up the warning sign that says, do not jump on the turtles, and good luck with that, right? Then what? It's gonna attract more wildlife, the migratory species, the ones that are just gonna wander in and call it home, all right? So that is it creates a trophic cascade, right? You change some species, then there's a cascade. And the ecosystem services that we discussed. These are concepts that are alive and well in our community. What I want to ask you to pivot onto and include are the neurologic cascades, right? So that pond out there, outside by the parking lot, then what happens? And this is our conversation last night. People walk out there during their break in their conference, and they just hang out and have a conversation by it. They look at the wildlife that has been attracted there. They relax. They take a break from conferencing. Maybe they go and have their photograph taken there because they're having their wedding here, right? Maybe they just needed a moment to get away from their family, or get away from a conversation, or get away from the noise. And that little patch of water with those turtles swimming around provided that. That's the neurologic cascade, the emotional services that healthy lakes, rivers, oceans, waterways provide. Now, this is a moment, I was in Indonesia with my daughter about 7 years ago. And that, I would say, was about as close to a perfect moment that I can think of. We've been looking for turtles, we've been diving in the ocean and out of the ocean all day long. And that's the diver symbol for everything's okay, right? That's the signal. If you're at the surface, you put your hand on your head, that's the big okay. That's the other. This was the more than okay moment. Being in on the water with your kids, with any kids, with the people you love the most in the world, it creates memories, creates big ones. And if you ask Grace right now, if we could bring her in and say, Grace, tell me about that. She thinks about that day a lot still. It gets her through tough patches. She just told me she wanted to be an aquatic ecologist. She's 15, right? No pressure, no pressure, no pressure. It's cool. I acted like it was cool. It's cool. Oh, that's nice, honey. Woohoo! Inside, right? But that's the neurologic cascade, the emotional cascade. Those experiences lay the groundwork. So we talk about the ecological, the economic, the educational, and let's not forget the emotional benefits of the lakes that you're working and fighting for, that you're managing, that you're studying. There's a vast list of emotional benefits. And I'll challenge you to make that list for yourself, for your agency, for your organization, for your team. Just make that list and think about it a little bit. So why is this important? Well, 60% of modern diseases are connected to stress, caused by or exacerbated by stress, 60%. So we're talking about a public health issue when we talk about the role, emotional role that water can play in our lives. Our lives are becoming more stressful, not less. We're more connected, not less. More of us with more concerns. There's news stations that are on for 24/7. It's mostly bad news. You know what I'm talking about. And you wake up, you're connected. You go to sleep, maybe the last thing you do is check your email, your text message, respond to an urgency somewhere. Right? Everywhere I go to talk about Blue Mind, I find newspapers with front pages like this. Stressed out people doing things that make things worse. People self-medicating with chemicals that make things worse, make their bodies worse, make their family situation, their community situation, and even their waterways worse. This is red mind. This is part of who we are. Right? We need stress. We need urgency. We need to get excited. We need to get away from danger. We need to get across the finish line. We need to meet our deadlines. Right? It's part of who we are. But if it's all of who we are, then things fall apart. Our bodies fall apart. At the DNA level, look it up. Look up the neurophysiology of stress. Bob Sapolsky at Stanford. He's such a cool guy and really funny, and he's a lot of hair and a huge beard. Just look up his YouTube videos and his lectures. But stress will wreck you. Whether you're a human being, a sea turtle, a baboon, it will wreck you. Now we wish we could just go to the doctor and have this procedure just done sort of in an outpatient way. It says, I found this in your brain. It's one of those monkeys with the cymbals just banging together. Monkey mind is a term that's used often. And now when we communicate about the urgencies of our waterways, we use fear. We scare people into action sometimes. That's a favorite tool. We use anger. We get mad sometimes. We think that'll move the needle. Fear and anger, yeah, that's what we should do. A little more of that. Shame, guilt and shame. Fear, anger, guilt, and shame. Yes, now we're on to something. Here, we're building some movement. And then, we love facts too. So here's a wheelbarrow full of facts. That works, along with our fear, anger, guilt, shame. Right? Let's motivate people like that. It's not working. That's not working. These are all important drivers. And of course, getting the science right There's no compromise on that, and sharing it. Of course not. But you don't want to bore people, and you don't want to remind them that they failed high school chemistry, right? We do that a lot. We need to build in some other tools, like gratitude. A little touchy-feely sounds like, but when you talk to the neuroscientists, they say, well, of course. What happens when you say thank you? Boom, oxytocin. Thank you like you mean it is a good thing to remember to do. More. And you know how much it adds to your budget? 0. It costs nothing to say thank you like you mean it. Love. Use the word. Talk about what you love. We love that water that we're fighting for, of course. Let's talk about it. Coca-Cola sells sugar water with the word happiness. McDonald's sells hamburgers with the word love. Subaru sells cars. Anybody drive a Subaru? They own the word love, I think, in their advertising. Why? Why? It's a car, right? You love a car? Yeah, well, kind of. But do you love lakes more? Yeah. Let's talk about that. Let's use the right words. Let's re-own the language. Trust, building trust. We need more of that, of course, right? If trust breaks down, well, things stall. Things become divisive. We don't accomplish. Remember that first perspective, that blue marble perspective. We work together, we can get it done. The science and psychology of green space is established. Time in green space is good for us. Turns out, blue space is even better. Hanging out with plants is good. Hanging out with water is better. Even the sound of water is therapeutic. We know that. That's what we experienced this morning with that beautiful video, right? Even on a 2-dimensional screen, right, piped into a conference ballroom, it moves us. The real thing is beyond. This is not a new idea. This is an ancient idea that has been shared by cultures all over the world. First people all over the world know this to be quite true. Water is life. Water is medicine. Without it, we're diminished. We're dead. Artists have depicted this relationship, the emotional relationship to water, forever, all the way back. Every culture you'll find water-related art that describes the emotional connection. People stood in line to stand in front of paintings like this one and paid money to see a painting of water, to feel this feeling. It's my brother-in-law's painting, John Ember. He passed away a couple years ago after a struggle with ALS, and this is one of his last paintings. His joy in life as a painter and as a teacher, he taught painting at Harvard, accomplished painter, was to paint by the water with his students, with my sister. Their first date up in Maine, this is Stonington Harbor, by the way. Their first date was painting by the water, painting in nature. They fell in love there, and they spent their relationship, their lives painting together. He said that when he could no longer paint, he would leave. He would stop drinking water and then leave. And he did. And this is one of the gifts that he left behind. When he could no longer use his right hand, he switched his brush to his left hand. When he couldn't use his left hand, he held it in his mouth. When he couldn't hold it in his mouth, my sister made a rig so he could hold the paintbrush on his head. And he painted that. He said, every brush stroke has become more deliberate. And I've never painted better in my life. But being by the water, painting by the water, was what made him happy. And what built their relationship and built my nephew Gus. He came from that relationship based on water. This is Rand Ortner, another painter. He paints huge triptychs, just big, large water paint, always water, just the surface, never a reference to land. He puts up to 5 inches of paint on the canvas. He says he wants to try to get the luminance, the way the light passes through water into our eyes. He wants that to happen with his canvas. That's what he's after. No irony, no subtext. He just says, I love water, so I paint it. Right? A painting like that might take him 6 months to get right. If you stand back from that, you would look at it from across the room and say, that's a beautiful photograph. As you walk close, you start to realize it's not. And as you walk really close, you start to realize that it's like mountains and valleys of paint. Fantastic depiction. The cover of the New Yorker. They know that water makes people happy. It sells magazines. Look at that. 3 generations of water gazing. Okay? What happens? The shorts get higher, or as you go. Is anybody around here a water gazer? You like just like sit and look and listen to the water, just maybe spend the day. It never gets boring. You know what that's a Herman Melville term, water gazers. Right? They sell magazines by putting this Blue Mind on the cover. Right? Kids behind the fence. And of course, that famous one, Mr. Trump, enjoying a big old belly flop right into the pool. Corona sells beer. I can say this in this room in a way that I feel more confident than I ever have before. Pretty darn bad beer. Woo, yeah. In a clear bottle. And if you're a beer person, you know what I mean by that. Bad beer in a clear bottle. No gracias. I'll pass on that. How do they sell it? How do they sell bad beer in a clear bottle? The ocean, the water. To make you feel like, oh, I'm on vacation. Pop that, and I got it. I was driving to a water, it's actually a water conference in Banff, in Canada. And I passed 3 Corona billboards on my way into the Canadian Rockies that look basically like that. I was like, wow, they're working hard to sell their beer. And it's on the back of water. It's on the back of Blue Mind. Their brand is built on this feeling that is our work to safeguard that feeling. The Nestea plunge. The only way I entered into the water for many years as a kid was smiling backwards. You ever do the Nestea plunge? You just sort of fall back, and actually you have to say you're doing the Nestea plunge and then you do it. But marketing, again, marketers know this. The last line of Shawshank Redemption, Morgan Freeman. I hope the Pacific is as blue as it's been in my dreams. I hope. Close curtain. End of movie. Right? And, yes, it was. That's what got him through. If you know the story, Red, the character Red, gets through incarceration. Right? Gets his brain through that process by thinking about the water, dreaming about the water. Academy Award-winning film Moonlight, if you've seen it or not, but I suggest that you watch it. The character, lead character is water. Right? Water did not win an Academy Award. It should have. Water was the lead in that film. Water was the connection between all the characters. So yesterday we spent the day, Eric invited us to bring our 7th Blue Mind Summit here to Stevens Point. We spent the day talking about what we refer to the 7 ages of water. And I want to run through kind of a summary of the conversation yesterday. And again, this is a different way to frame our conversation about water. The point is that from end to end, from birth to death, water is important. And it's an evolving relationship that changes, right? We go through birth, then into an age I call play, and then the 3 middle ages, the lover, the fighter, and the justice. Most of us right now are in the justice age, although every age should reflect all previous ages. Right? So you should continue to play for creative sake throughout your life. Right? You should continue to love, you should continue to fight, even in this age I call the justice. And then ebb and flow is when we start to slow down. Right? Gravity starts to really be apparent. We get back into the water. And then death, of course, is the final age. So I'll run through that. Birth, water and birth. Well, you've heard of water birthing, right? You've heard of women actually laboring in water and giving birth, and then postpartum, and then getting your babies into water as soon as possible, getting them on the water. Turns out babies are really good in the water. We've sort of lost that a bit. Water birth is quite healthy and relaxing and safe. Water parenting from through the whole pregnancy process. Getting in the water is good. As you start to feel heavier, getting in the water is good for exercise. And then labor and birth. And then babies in the water should learn to swim at an early age. The next stage I call play, right? That's where, now we're a little bit more mobile, we're starting to grow up, and the role of water becomes a very playful context. I like to say, balloons are fun. Water balloons, woohoo! Slides are great. Water slides, pare, Parks are nice. Water parks with water, better. Playing with water, it's just what kids do. It's good for our brains. It's good for our brains to move in 3 dimensions, to feel that freedom. A sense of hope that comes from being in the water, right? How many times were you told, time to get out of the water, and then you didn't? Nope. Time to get out of the water, your fingers are getting pruny. Nope. Time to get out of the water, sun's setting, all day if you could. We build trust. We build trust in ourselves. We build trust in each other. Build trust in those around us by spending time together in water and testing things out. Here in Wisconsin, Northwest Passage is utilizing all of these concepts together for the betterment of young people who need it. Getting them into our lakes and rivers, teaching them the skills, the confidence, teaching them to trust themselves, to trust each other. Big deal for these kids. Super big deal. Up in Portland, Oregon, Chad Brown has a program called Soul River. Gets kids out of the city, onto the rivers, fly a fishing pole in their hand. Some of them have never even seen a river other than the one running right through downtown Portland, the Willamette. Melania Trump, a quote her from last month. Visiting Children's National, she said, natural benefits can be instrumental to enhancing the health and well-being of all children. Stop, period. Fact. The director of the hospital reiterated that. Nature is medicine. Our First Lady is saying that. The doctors are supporting that statement. It's a transpartisan concept, right? There's no debate. Although, we do need to make sure the nature is healthy. The lakes are accessible. Otherwise, that goes away. Water builds confidence through play. That's my daughter, Julia. I have to say, she does not need any more confidence. I would like maybe a little less confidence. So I'm arranging some experiences that might help to achieve that. But she's a confident young lady. And she would tell you the same thing, yes. Kids in California learning to surf, kids from the Central Valley, never seen the ocean, ag families. Learning to surf, empowering. It builds confidence. It's not about learning to surf necessarily, it's about building confidence. So getting on the water and having a very different kind of experience. The sense of freedom that we get in the water. You know what I'm talking about, right? Immediately, you get out to the water and there's just this moment where you're, okay, a little bit of breathing room, a little bit of freedom. And for kids that need that feeling the most, like Naoki, right? Young man, autistic, wrote this book, The Reason I Jump. And he said in that book that it's the water. It's the best. It's the best place for him to feel happy, to feel free, to be quiet, because it's so noisy here on land with all you people and all your stuff. But when I get in the water, that's it. That's where I feel the best. I feel like the way you probably feel on land. I need the water for that. So for Naoki, water is his best medicine. Right? Words of a 13-year-old boy. Of course, play is a lifelong activity. Never give up playing. Never give up singing in the rain, stomping in puddles. Just do it. Just, don't worry about who's watching. Dance in the rain. Jump off those cliffs again that you used to jump off. Yell when you're doing it. Play around. Bring the kids. Bring your friends. Next stage I call the lover. And this is where we fall in love with ideas. We fall in love with each other. We fall in love with places. And we get serious about it. Right? Where our passion is ripe for application. Right? We start to explore the world of ideas, the world of relationships, and we build relationships. And this is a great book. I just flashed by too fast there. Have you ever read that book, River Why, by David James Duncan? Highly recommend it. It's a beautiful romance story told kind of on top of the backdrop of a river in Oregon. Water gives us privacy. And in this world, we need more of that, right? There's less and less privacy, more things sort of measuring whatever we're doing. Whether it's the box connected to your TV, the box in your pocket, smartphone, or surveillance cameras in the parking lots, or you name it. And I don't want to drill down on that, but there's a lot of lack of privacy. You get out to the water, that's a great place to achieve privacy. Leave your phone in the car or at home, get out on the water, and you can actually have a private conversation. And it feels that way. You're in kind of a cone of water sound, and you have to get closer together to hear each other. These are places where we find our dreams, where we have our dreams. We think of the things we're going to be passionate about and for, where we let our minds wander. Right? It used to be that we thought of mind wandering and daydreaming as a bad thing. It's a good thing. We need more of it because we're doing less of it. Right? We're in the box a lot more time of the day now, both in school and at work. The sense of awe and wonder that we experience when we're near, in, on, and underwater, super important. And the science is clear. The neuroscience of awe tells us that awe, the feeling of awe, and the number one source of awe, turns out, is nature. But within that, water. So the number one source of awe for humans on Earth is water. Awe builds empathy. We need more of that, don't we? Awe builds this different perspective that shifts us from a me to a we perspective. That's what awe does. It makes you feel small. It humbles you, right, to the world around us. The lover is also about romance, right? Water is often about, I could tell my story of my relationship with my wife from a water perspective. I proposed to her underwater. I slipped a turtle ring on her underwater. And we came to the surface, I said, "Will you marry me?" And she said, I thought she was going to say, "Yes, of course." She said, "Under one condition." It has not, oh, we're floating around in the water like, I am not, what do you mean one condition? Wait a second. Let's go to the beach and talk about this. And she said that you learn to cook. I don't know, like, it could have been so much more romantic, but we got married on the beach, we honeymooned by the water, and dare I say in public, I think both of our children were conceived near the water. So, speaking of that, you know this film, From Here to Eternity? Oh wait, I'm gonna go back to this one. So, Leo DiCaprio, right? Titanic on the bow of the ship. One of the great movies of all time, one of the most romantic scenes. They fall in love, they sail across the ocean, they get married, they have kids, they live happily ever after, right? That's the alternative ending there all right, so From Here to Eternity. Anybody remember that movie? That was another big popular movie. This is quite a scandalous moment in the movie, but I like to include this because I like to say, that was a famous scene in a famous beach because of the scene. But take the water out, and you've got two people in their underwear rolling around in the dirt. Bring the water back, it's good, it's sexy. Take the water out again, people in the dirt. Weird, totally weird. They would not keep that scene in the movie. The roll around the dirt scene would not be like the iconic scene that it became. So it's the water. There's something about the water and romance that go together. Gilgamesh, the Epic of Gilgamesh, the first recorded human story, for those of you who are scholars of history there. But in this story, this epic story, the earliest recorded human story is this scene where the man and the woman are hanging out in nature, which they did, watching the wildlife by the water. And then, well, they call the word coupled, kind of sexy, sort of, in a very Epic of Gilgamesh sort of way. This is the first recorded honeymoon, as I like to say. And of course, frogs. And Archie Carr is one of my heroes. He's a pioneer in sea turtle science, but he's a great writer. Just the idea, like warm, wet nights, whether it's people or frogs, it's the same thing. You sing, you get sexy, it's great. Dave and Amy Foreman, Dave presented at Blue Mind yesterday. They've explored together the waterways of our continent, really. And National Geographic Explorers of the Year in 2014. And their romance is built on water. And I think a lot of us can say something of the sort if we think about it. Next stage I call the fighter. And the fighter is where we fight for what we love. It kicks in. You have your passion. You love others. You love your place. You love your country. You love your water. You love ideas. And you work for them. You advocate for them in whatever way, shape, or form that makes sense. So when we are the fighters, sometimes we need to chill out. If you're fighting all the time, you can find yourself in trouble. I gave a keynote or a commencement address at the university I graduated from in Indiana, DePaul University. And this is the main theme. You are lovers and fighters, not lovers or fighters. Fight, young people, you fight for what you love. You got to figure out what you love. The great Sylvia Earle spent her life working for, advocating for the ocean. Manu Jo Green advocating for the Hudson River, right, with Woody Guthrie. Alice Brown Otter young woman advocating for clean waterways. This guy, I don't know who that guy is, but I like it. I like the, he's a fighter, I'm sure he must like turtles a little bit. And this guy loves neuroscience. That is serious, man. I mean, that's a serious neuroscience advocate. What's that on your back, man? Oxytocin tattoo. Steph Curry, our local hero in California, he loves water. It turns out he goes to the water and floats in it every week. And he's taken his game from really good to great. Chicago Cubs, they installed a float tank in their locker room so their players, when they were stressed, could chill in the water, right? So that's the one version of it, but getting out on the lake is a way to chill out too. Athletes, fighters know that. Being out in nature gives us humility, and when we're in the fighter mode, we need some humility. Otherwise, you make mistakes. Right? Every good fighter, every good athlete, every warrior knows that the true path to success involves humility. What are men to rocks and mountains? Nature humbles us. Water humbles us. It's so powerful. The lakes and the rivers and the oceans are so powerful and indifferent, and that's humbling. Sometimes when you fight, you meet trauma, whether it's on the battlefield or fighting fires or serving as a police officer. You get hurt. This is my friend Martin Pollock. He came back from Afghanistan with one of his arms and none of his legs. He said to me, my plan was to be a blob on a bar stool with my mates at a pub. He's from Cornwall, England. And then he got hooked up with this group called Operation Surf. And literally right now, he is in Santa Cruz. Not just as a participant, but as a leader. He learned to surf. He has learned to surf quite well. And now he takes people and encourages them to get in the water and surf. They say, well, that guy with no legs and one arm, he's doing pretty well. I think I might be able to do this. Yeah. So he inspires people. And you know what he said? The ocean gave me my life back. The water gave me my life. You know what I am now? I am a water warrior. By the way, I'm trained to win. My government, your government, has spent millions, hundreds, billions of dollars training us to be warriors who win. And now I am a warrior for water because water gave me my life back. That's what I fight for. I get people in the water. I make sure the water is healthy enough to be in. Groups like Heroes on the Water, Wounded Warriors, lots of organizations popping up, beginning to make this connection. And the science is coming in. Dr. Russell Crawford spoke yesterday on the research that he and others are doing to back up what we know intuitively, that water can be healing. Of course, it's not a silver bullet solution, particularly to extreme post-traumatic stress. Doesn't fix everything, but it helps, right? Think about that connection. We're serving those who served us, who came back with injuries, internal and external. Our waterways are part of the toolkit for healing. There's a group called Maramed that my cousin Matt runs in Kailua. They get kids, at-risk youth. Kids that are one more click and they're basically done. It gets them out on the water. It takes them on voyages. multi-week voyages to sea, and they don't come back until the young men are sailing the ship. Tall ship. Builds confidence. Shifts them. Nobody is unchanged. Doesn't fix everything and everyone, of course. Nobody is unchanged for the positive. Okay, the next age is called the justice, and that's, again, kind of where we all live right now. The justice is the age where you're at peak responsibility, hopefully peak wisdom of some sort, right? You're asked to solve problems every day, to get it right, and to be just and fair, right? That's a lot of responsibility. It's heavy. It's at home, you're responsible. It's at work, it's in your community, it's in your associations, in your clubs, in your place of worship, on your sports teams. You're in a leadership role, and there's a lot of responsibility that comes with that. You need an outlet to maintain that level of productivity and clarity. This is an entryway into Modesto, California, a place where water is extremely important. They know about water. They know it gives relaxation. The coast is a place that people go to. Real estate values have popped up as a result. Zillow did a study, waterfront homes, more than double the price. More than double. Look at that. Average 10 million front row, 1 million second row. That's Del Mar, California. That's 1,000% premium. People understand that they need the water. Again, all over our country, this is the case. Places like Pittsburgh, transforming their downtowns. Water parks for adults, New York City. The research shows that even aquariums work. Fake water, artificial water, that works. Helps us relax. Go to the aquarium to relax. Gives us solitude. We need solitude to think clearly. We have less and less solitude, and people are more and more distracted, particularly our young people. Solitude is now a gift. Gives us creativity. The great Oliver Sacks, the neurologist, said he got his best ideas while in the water. He was full of good ideas, many good ideas. Pharrell Williams, who wrote that song Happy, that you probably got so annoyed by a couple summers ago, he says he got his creativity from the water. Okay, second to last age, and I'm going to cruise through these real quick. Ebb and flow. That's where gravity starts to weigh us down. We start to slow down, and we need water for healing. Right? We are mostly water. We need to make sure we're hydrated first and foremost. Hygiene, but then also getting to the water to soothe our minds when we're slowing down. This is Jarmila. She was taken out of a nursing home she hadn't been out of for quite a while, taken to the ocean. It's where she wanted to go. Stood up out of her wheelchair, shuffled forward. My friend Greg said, Jarmila, I didn't know you could stand or walk. I said, I haven't had anything worth walking to in a long time. Right? Think about that. Sometimes we get clobbered, injured, sick when we're young. So ebb is not just later in life, it's at any time. And even virtual ocean, virtual water can be healing, can help us relax. Right? So if virtual water works, well, think of what real water can do. Of course, nostalgia is important to us. Reconciliation by the water. Have you ever gone to the water to work something out that you needed to? Ancient idea that water is the first and foremost medicine. Not a new concept. We need to build on this list that we've started and include the cognitive, emotional, psychological, social, and spiritual health benefits of water. Okay, last and the least popular, death. Boom. Back to the water. We memorialize those we've lost by the water. We naturally gather there. We grieve by the water. That's my mom. Got her out into the mountains finally, and got a smile because we're out overlooking the water. We connect by the water. We connect in the water. Surfers do paddle outs to remember lost loved ones. They get in a circle and they connect. It's an ancient activity. This is my friend Diane's son who died as a very young man. Boy, actually. He loved the water though. That was his therapy. He couldn't even move his body at this point, but he moved his hand to reach out to this dolphin. The water is healing for us as we lose those we love. Ancient idea, all the way back to my favorite Psalm, the 23rd. To paraphrase, sorry for this paraphrase, but it's going to be a little blunt. When the shit's hitting the fan and you're walking through the Red Valley, the Lord says, get to the water and chill out, man. Just find that spot and just breathe, right? Ancient. 7 ages of water. Just a framework for us to remember how important the work we're doing really is. We know the ecological, the economic, the educational value. The emotional value is vast. It's moving. If we don't have access, it's gone. And you are the front line to provide that access. The things that can destroy access are physical limitations, pollution, and perception that we're not allowed to go there. You can try to go to the water. Sometimes you're not allowed to. You're warned. Sometimes the gate is closed. Sometimes there's ownership, restrictions. Sometimes the pool's closed. Sometimes the pool's gnarly. It's open, but no, thank you. I go, nah, that's creeping me out. Sometimes there are bigger problems, fundamental problems about our access to clean water. Sometimes we have oil spills that wreck the place. Wreck the whole place, wreck the whole deal, economically, environmentally, ecologically, and emotionally challenging. Sometimes we go there and it's trashed. And we know that that trash undermines the psychological benefits. Yet another study pointing in exactly the same direction. We have a war on this pollution underway right now. We need to stop it and we need to clean it up. Sometimes you can't get to the water because of the color of your skin, right? Around the world that is still an issue. Less so here in the US, but definitely an issue around the world. There are programs that empower young women. Sometimes your gender keeps you out of the water in certain parts of the world. Because you're a woman, you're not allowed to put on a wetsuit and get in the ocean. Half the population is not allowed to get in the ocean. Sometimes you restrict yourself from the water because of this technology, this addiction that we have, right? The gate may be open, the water may be clean, nobody's stopping you except yourself because you got your head down in the phone. I suggest we remove the smartphones and replace them with smart turtles. Or maybe snails, smart snails, we can do that. Those are better than smartphones. Or maybe smart fishing poles, better than smartphones. So the summary of my message here is that water is life. It makes life worth living as well. That's the part we want to talk about more. If we undervalue water, if we undervalue anything or anyone, bad things happen. Always. Water is our first medicine for physical and mental health. Let's not be afraid of that conversation. Let's lead it. And remember the fourth E, the emotional benefits. Don't ever leave that out of your report, your keynote, your talk, your mission statement, your case to your community leadership for funding. Don't leave it out. It's like Red Bull supercharger for your arguments. Access to water for all people through all 7 ages of our lives. And please, please, please always include your version of this messaging in every way we communicate. Because if you don't, you're either saying it's not real, false, it's not important, absolutely false, or you don't know about it. And as of this moment, you don't have that excuse after this past hour. So let's take the conversation out of the bathroom, out of the science centers and aquariums, out of the lake houses, and let's take it to the boardrooms. And let's take it to the White House. And let's make this happen. Let's pass on this message like we're passing on our blue marbles. And I want to ask you to take your blue marbles and pass them on to somebody that you want to say thank you to, that you want to share this message with. These marbles have been passed around the world between millions and millions of people. Some famous, some unknown. Kids of all ages are sharing these blue marbles. And the message, going back to my late father, this was the message on his office door for many years. Right? That's how change happens. We dare. We fail. We fall down, but we get back up and dare some more. because that's way more interesting. And so our goal here is to be unstoppable in our pursuit of clean, healthy, accessible, wild lakes, rivers, and oceans for everyone. We have to be unstoppable. And the only way we're going to be unstoppable is to treat ourselves well, to treat each other well, and to get in the water more. I don't think there's anybody in this room who would say, I've been in the water way too much, chilling out. It's just, I've had too much fishing, too much floating around, too much fun. This past year, just way too much fun. And is there anybody? I mean, come on. We all fail a little bit. We all fall a little short. Let's get out there a little more. Be healthy and embody that. That's my message. Thank you for inviting me to share it. We'll be around all the way through tomorrow. And I know I took all the question and answer time up, I think. And then 6 minutes. If there are any urgent questions, I'm getting a signal from the boss that we have a few minutes for those. So thank you very much for listening.
Questions. We have a microphone over here. I believe there's a microphone on this side as well. If you have a question you want to ask, just step up to the microphone and feel free. This is a part of a sort of a Wisconsin Lakes Convention tradition to interact with the keynote. So let's grab a mic if you have questions.
Drill the keynote, abuse the keynote, ask some really hard questions.
Don't see anyone heading to a mic.
Sometimes people want to know about the turtle. That's a common question. We go through all this neuroscience and like, I have a question about the turtle. Adelita made it back to Japan, and we lost track of her track after that 368 days. Her fate, as a scientist, I would say inconclusive. We're not sure, but we suspect that she at least was caught on a squid boat and perhaps released alive, and the transmitter removed. And I like that story. That's the one I'm going with. The kind fisherman took the transmitter off, released the turtle. She's out laying eggs somewhere right now, and then maybe brought the transmitter back to town, where he promptly was told to smash it. I think that's the story that I'm going to kind of go with. So I went to the community, asked around, and nobody admitted to smashing the transmitter. So.
What caused her to be in captivity for 10 years before release?
There was a very enthusiastic marine biologist, friend, colleague, who also passed away last year, Antonio Resendiz, and he rescued the turtle when it was young and rehabbed it, and really liked the turtle, and it was really hard to get him let her go. The justification for captivity wore thin, and it was time to let her go. And in fact, I look back at my notes, observing her in the tank, and she was always hanging out on the west side of the tank. And I didn't make sense of that at the time until we tracked her due west at about 1 knot for 368 days. And then looking back on that observation in the tank, it made perfect sense. She was ready. If there wasn't a wall there, she was headed, probably walking across the desert, across the peninsula to the ocean. So, but originally captivity due to a rescue situation from a fishing net. Yeah.
Do you know the percentage of people that did not live on or near the water? And then if you do, how do we get those people to accomplish that?
Yeah, good question. So about 80% of the world's population lives, depending on how you describe near, but in water vicinity, which is pretty amazing. You think about it. And you look at that map of the US, there's hardly, even in Arizona, there are arroyos and creeks and rivers that at least are seasonal. So everywhere I go, I ask, what's your water? And I haven't heard anybody say, wow, I have no idea. I don't have any water. I gave a talk in Kansas, at the University of Kansas, and an engineering grad student came up and said, I loved your sort of methodical unpacking of this idea as an engineer. It was very appealing. And he said, last weekend I took my girlfriend out to our local creek, river, and with my guitar, I wrote a song for her, and I took her there because I needed to tell her that I loved her for the first time. This young man. And he said, now I understand why we went to the river. I just did it naturally. So even in places not as well known for their waterways as Wisconsin, like Kansas, people love their water, and they use it that way. They dream of coming here, right? And they dream of coming up and getting in one of these lakes, or up Lake Superior, or floating down a river. But they utilize their water. So that's usually the way I start. I find the story that everybody has already, rather than trying to convince them of my story, which involves turtles. Not everybody loves turtles. I finally recognize that, believe it or not. Trying to convince the whole world that, you know, it's a turtle-centric universe is just going nowhere. So.
All right, let's give one more round of applause.
Thank you. I forgot to mention, I think this would have helped really early on to build the confidence and trust in me. My mom's from Green Bay, so I'll be back there for her high school reunion this summer. I'm her bodyguard. She needs a bodyguard.
I do have a couple of quick announcements. If you're feeling slightly peckish, there are still some baked goods in the corner over here. You might want to grab one on your way to the next session. The next sessions are going to start at 11 o'clock, and then we reconvene back in this room for lunch. So as you're leaving, if you could do the staff a favor, if you pushed out your chair, maybe just push it back in, because they're going to come around and reset the tables and get things ready for lunch. We have about 400 people for lunch, so it's going to be a little crowded. The next sessions, I believe, are scheduled to start at 11 o'clock. There's still coffee on your table as well as water if you want to grab that as you're heading out. I also want to give one more round of applause, if you will, for Amy Kowalski and her work with the video. And directly related to that, both the video and the talk you just seen will be archived on the convention webpage. So if you want to share this story with your colleagues, with your fellow lake lovers, you'll be able to do that through our webpage. So thank you, and we'll see you back in here for lunch.
Yeah, that's fun.